UFC 325 is just around the corner, and I'm going to be predicting as many fights as I can on this card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event. We're going to start off with this absolute banger that everybody has been waiting for. The People's Main Event, aka Aaron Tal versus Namsrai Batbayar. Dude, I don't know, man. Aaron Tal's a really fun fighter, bro. Yeah, I have no idea who either of these guys are. The only thing I know about them, apparently, Aaron Tal's pretty fun, and the UFC really want Aaron Tal as a prospect. I guess I could pick Aaron Tal based on that, but I'm not really too sure. So here's what we're gonna do instead. If it lands on heads, I'm gonna go with Aaron Tal, and if it lands on tails, I'm gonna go with Namsrai Batbayar. Okay, it landed on tails. I'm going to go with Namsrai Batbayar. Moving on, we got... I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name. Versus Lawrence Lui. Yeah, I don't know who either of these guys are either. I'll be completely real with y'all. I don't bother to really do some tape studies on these guys. Like, I'll be real. Like, road to UFC or, like, regional level MMA. Like, it's cool and all, but, like, you never really know. Like, they could be fighting schmucks for all you know. But I'm gonna go with this. All right, we got our trusty little quarter over here. If it lands on heads, I'm gonna go with Sulangrangbo, and if it lands on tails, I'm gonna go with Lawrence Lui. It landed on tails. I'm going with Lawrence Lui. Now up next, it just keeps on getting better and better. We got Keiichiro Nakamura versus Sebastian Szalay. I don't know how to pronounce that name. All right, you guys know the drill. If it lands on heads, I'm going with Keiichiro Nakamura. And if it lands on tails, I'm going with Sebastian Szalay. It landed on heads. I'm going with Keiichiro Nakamura. Now, last but not least, we're going to go with Sangwook Kim versus Dom Mar Fan. Why are there 4 of these random ass fights that nobody gives a fuck about on this card? I don't really get it, UFC. But anyways, though, I'm gonna go with Sangwook Kim, believe it or not. And am I just solely basing this off the fact that he's Korean? Yes. All right. I just kind of want to see him win, just for that. All right. Would I be shocked if Dom Marfar beats Sangwook Kim? Not really, because I don't really know either of these two guys. I'm going to hope that Sangwook Kim wins, so I'm going to go with Sangwook Kim to win this via, I don't know. I don't know. I'll say decision, just to be safe. All right, now moving on, we got Ofli versus Yizha. Finally, we got a pretty good fight to talk about. I'm going to go with Yizha on this one. I just don't want to pick Ofli. Like, I know he won his last fight via rear naked choke, but that's against Ricardo Ramos. Like, specifically one-armed Ricardo Ramos. And outside of that, Ofli has been truly awful in the UFC. I'm sorry. Losing 30-27 to Muhammad Naimov is simply disgraceful. Now, Yizha, I know his track record isn't the best. You know, a loss against Jung Young Lee isn't exactly the best. And his win is against Weston Wilson hasn't aged all that well, but I do think that Yizha can beat up Ofli. Every time I watch Ofli strike, it feels like he's like scared to get hit. And he just, like, kind of charges at you in order to try to negate the punches. I just can't trust someone like that to win a fight. All right, so I'm going to go with Yizha to piece up Ofli. Maybe Ofli can start to out-scramble Yizha. But, again, the only guy he's submitted recently is Ricardo Ramos. And outside of that, he's been taking a lot of guys to pretty shitty decisions. I know he did lose to Myron Santos. I'm not going to hold it against him. But other than that, though, neither his wins or his losses have impressed me too much. So I'm going to go with Yizha to tune up Ofli. I'm going to say 29-28 decision for Yizha. Maybe it's a TKO, but I do think that Yizha will beat Ofli to cap off the early prelims. Alright, now moving on, we got Jonathan Micallef versus Oban Elliot. This is a very interesting fight. This was supposed to happen on the Abu Dhabi Fight Night card a couple months back, but I do think that there were some visa issues. I don't exactly know what happened, but anyways, though, I'm gonna go with Oban Elliot. I know he lost to Seokhyun Ko, but Seokhyun Ko's really good, and I just don't see that type of game plan working for Jonathan Micallef. And now, don't get me wrong, Jonathan Micallef, he came in on his debut, and he did pretty well against Kevin Juseit, right, who was a pretty decent striker. He was able to kick Kevin Juseit's head nonstop, and was able to get a pretty good win. But I just don't think that, Oban Elliot is as bad as Kevin Juseit. Like, I do think that Oban Elliot's very good. Like, yes, he got held on the ground for 3 rounds by Seokhyun Ko, but Seokhyun Ko's a very good grappler, and Jonathan Micallef, his submission game is good, but I don't really know too much about his overall grappling game. So I think Oban Elliot can dictate where the fight goes, and even on the feet, like, sure, you could say that, Jonathan Micallef has the good head kick, but it's like, I don't think it's gonna knock out Oban Elliot, alright? Like, Oban Elliot's pretty tough. So I'm going to go with Oban Elliot to just mix the martial arts better than Jonathan Micallef. I'm also considering the fact that Jonathan Micallef, he hasn't been too active, and he hasn't really fought in that many UFC fights, whereas Oban Elliot, he's been around the block. So I'm going to go with Oban Elliot to get a crafty decision, 29-28, to secure himself a unanimous decision win. Moving on, we got Jacob Malkoun versus Torrez Finney. I'm going with Jacob Malkoun on this one. I just don't think I can pick Torrez Finney, in all seriousness. Like, unless Torrez Finney is fighting an absolute bum who cannot wrestle, I just don't have any confidence in Torrez Finney winning fights. Because the thing about Torrez Finney, he is literally refusing to deal damage to his opponents. And even though his wrestling is really good, I feel like he's going to hit a brick wall, and that brick wall came sooner than I thought against a pretty solid wrestler in himself, Jacob Malkoun, right? And even though you could say that, Torrez Finney might have slightly better wrestling, I don't think he can, hold down Jacob Malkoun for 3 rounds, similar to what he did to Robert Valentin. And also, in hindsight, not finishing Robert Valentin is a terrible look. So I think that Jacob Malkoun will be able to just defend most of the takedowns and piece up Torrez Finney, because Torrez Finney, again, he just refuses to fight, right? He refuses to land any sort of damaging shots. He just tries to control you, and he, refuses to fight. So I'm going to go with Jacob Malkoun to outstrike Torrez Finney and to stuff the majority of the takedowns. Maybe Torrez Finney gets a takedown here and there, but I don't see him being able to hold down Jacob Malkoun for long periods of time, and that's the only way Torrez Finney really knows how to win a fight at the highest level. So I'm going to go with Jacob Malkoun to get the job done. Moving on, we got Cam Rowston versus Cody Brundage. I mean, this is pretty obvious for anybody who's been watching Cody Brundage for the last 2 years. Go with Cam Rowston on this one. Alright, Cam Rowston actually has talent. Like, there are concerns about his takedown defense, but it's Cody Brundage, alright? Like, Cody Brundage, he's a pretty good wrestler back in the day, and he defended Bo Nickal's takedowns. Like, come on now. Like, the only time Cody Brundage can win a fight is if he can fluke a overhand right once in a blue moon, or when he's acting in front of Jacob Malkoun, because Jacob Malkoun was beating his ass, but he hit him incorrectly, so Cody Brundage gets to take a DQ win for that. Alright, I think that Cam Rowston will just piece up Cody Brundage. I believe that Cam Rowston actually has talent. I don't know if Cam Rowston is necessarily this future ranked prospect to be out on the lookout for, because after all, the guy did lose to Torrez Finney, but I do think that he is good enough to beat Cody Brundage, which I'm going to be honest, it's a pretty low ceiling. So I'm going to pick Cam Rowston to get I'm going to say second round TKO, maybe the first round. I don't know, because the thing with Cody Brundage, he can get rocked, and then he'll immediately try to, duck his head under Cam Rowston's punches. I do not be surprised if back of the head shots are called in this fight. But either way, Rowston should get the job done. Maybe I could put on a sneaky little no contest for this fight, but I'm going to go with Rowston to TKO Cody Brundage over the course of 3 rounds. Moving on, we got Junior Tafa versus Billy Elekana. Again, a very obvious matchup. I mean, you just got to go with Billy Elekana because it's Junior Tafa. But if you want me to break it down more, alright, why not? Alright, Junior Tafa is just simply not UFC level. I mean, the guy has lost how many fights in a row now? He just can't grapple in the first place. His striking is also pretty abysmal outside of the low kicks. And overall, Junior Tafa, he's just not good, nor is he a fun fighter. Alright, I'm gonna go with Billy Elekana to do whatever he wants to Junior Tafa, like maybe submission, ground and pound TKO, maybe even a flat out KO. Like either way, I'm gonna go with Billy Elekana to get the job done. Again, Junior Tafa should not belong in the UFC, so I'm going to expect Billy Elekana to just easily ragdoll Junior Tafa within the first 2 rounds and get a pretty effortless submission by the second round. Moving on, we got Quillan Salkilld versus Jamie Mullarkey. I feel bad for Jamie Mullarkey here because Quillan Salkilld is probably going to butcher him. Right? I just don't know how Jamie Mullarkey is going to win this fight. You know, props to him for stepping up on short notice, but unfortunately, I don't see this ending very well for Jamie Mullarkey, because Jamie Mullarkey, the only time he is able to win fights is if he's fighting, like, bottom-of-the-barrel lightweight competition that don't really have that many threats to their game. Quillan Salkilld has a lot of threats to his game. You know, he got a KO over Anshul Jubilee, and he got a head kick KO over Nasrat Hakparas. But he's a primary grappler, alright? I do think that Quillan Salkilld can just grapple Jamie Mullarkey. Like, on the feet, do I think he's gonna get a stellar knockout? I mean, maybe. I mean, after all, it is Jamie Mullarkey, but I would not be shocked if Quillan Salkilld resorts more towards his grappling, because I do think that his grappling is better than his striking, even though he's got knockouts in his 2 of his last 3 fights. But either way, Quillan Salkilld should win this fight pretty easily. I'm going to go with Quillan Salkilld to... What do I think? Maybe he gets a KO, because Jamie Mullarkey has been KO'd a lot throughout most of his fights. But I think bare minimum, I do think that Quillan Salkilld will be able to out-grapple Jamie Mullarkey. And I can honestly see a sub in this fight, so do not be shocked if Quillan Salkilld gets a sub, but either way, Quillan Salkilld should make easy work of Jamie Mullarkey. Moving on, we got Tuivasa versus Tallison Texeira. Again, a pretty obvious fight if you really think about it. Like, you gotta go with Tallison Texeira here. How Tuivasa remained in the rankings of the heavyweight division in 2026, it's beyond me. But Tallison Texeira should knock out Tuivasa within the first 2 rounds. Tuivasa is not a dedicated MMA fighter. Tuivasa is a fat guy who's trying to lose some weight by going to Planet Fitness rather than going to a proper MMA gym and actually training the techniques. Tuivasa, it's a miracle as to how he was able to climb to the number 3 spot of the heavyweight division at one point. But yeah, I just don't think that Tuivasa will be able to do much of anything. Like, he's not even committed to the game at this point. He was out for a year, not due to injury. He just kind of got even fatter than before, which I didn't think was going to be possible. But yeah, it's just very hard to pick Tuivasa, who's coming off 5 losses in a row over the last 2 years. And now he's fighting Tallison Texeira. I understand that Tallison Texeira, you know, he got fraud checked by Derek Lewis, but I'm going to be honest, it was kind of a fluke. And outside of that, Tallison Texeira does look like a very dangerous heavyweight prospect. So I'm going to go with Tallison Texeira to flatline KO Tuivasa. I'm going to say by the end of the first round, maybe the second. But either way, I think this is going to be it for Tuivasa. And I'm expecting Tuivasa to retire after this fight. Moving on, we got Rafael Fiziev versus Mauricio Ruffy. Now, the vibes tell me that Mauricio Ruffy can win this, alright, because all the fighting nerds, since they've come off their loss, you know, they've been able to bounce back and drastically improve, which is something I noticed with a lot of the fighting nerds that lost their first fights in the UFC. but I don't think Mauricio Rufi is going to beat Rafael Fiziev, right? Because the more tape on what I watch on both of these guys, I'm starting to realize that Rafael Fiziev just has the answers against Mauricio Rufi, and I'm not just basing this off the fact that, oh, he lost to Benoit Saint-Denis, right? In hindsight, Benoit Saint-Denis is really good. However, Rafael Fiziev, although he doesn't have the grappling threat like Benoit Saint-Denis, I do think that he'll be able to set up his kicks a lot cleaner than Benoit Saint-Denis. Because the thing about Mauricio Rufi, he's a very slip and rip type of guy. You know, he always trying to get his head on the outside and then rip an uppercut. And he doesn't really throw that many combinations. He just throws like a 1-2, maybe just a cross after slipping a punch. But it's not really ideal for Rafael Fiziev's style, because Rafael Fiziev, he's very good at setting up his kicks. And I could see Mauricio Rufi leaning into a kick at times. Either that or he's just like holding up one hand. But either way, I expect Rafael Fiziev to just kind of kick at Mauricio Rufi's arms over and over again. And sure, you could say that, oh, he's trained with Volk and maybe he's drastically improved. But do I think he's improved enough to a point where he can offensively wrestle against Rafael Fiziev? Not really. Do I think he's going to completely change his style against Rafael Fiziev to be more wary of the kicks? Maybe, but probably not. So I'm going to go with Rafael Fiziev to cleanly outstrike Mauricio Rufi as the fight progresses. Maybe Mauricio Rufi lands some good shots in the first round, but by rounds 2 and 3, because neither guy really has a high output, I'm not exactly afraid for Rafael Fiziev's cardio in this situation. I do think that Rafael Fiziev will be able to set up his shots a lot better and just kind of overwhelm Mauricio Rufi as the fight progresses, because again, Mauricio Rufi's defense against kicks is very concerning, especially after that Benoit Saint-Denis fight. Benoit Saint-Denis, he doesn't have the quick, fast twitch muscles like a Rafael Fiziev, nor does he have the ability to set his kicks up like a Rafael Fiziev. So I think that Rafael Fiziev can take a lot from Mauricio Rufi's last fight and just find holes in Mauricio Rufi's game. That slip and rip style, I just don't think it's suitable to beating a Rafael Fiziev. So I'm going to go with Rafael Fiziev to win this fight 29-28, 30-27, but either way, I'm going to go with Rafael Fiziev via decision. Moving on, we got Dan Hooker versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Now, you guys might think I'm trolling when I say this, but I'm actually going with Dan Hooker on this one, alright? And let me explain. I don't think Benoit Saint-Denis is as good as people think, alright? Did he beat Mauricio Rufi? Yes, that is a good win. Did he KO Beneil Dariush in 16 seconds? Yes, that was a good win. Did he beat Kyle Prepolek? Yes, but it was kind of concerning, and that's my whole point. Benoit Saint-Denis, everyone's expecting him to just ragdoll Dan Hooker similar to what Arman Tsarukyan did to Dan Hooker, but I don't think Benoit Saint-Denis is nearly as good as Arman Tsarukyan. I think he's a lot slower. I think he's a lot more telegraphed. And even the way he wrestles, I don't think it's as consistent as Arman Tsarukyan. Alright? Arman Tsarukyan, he arguably has the best offensive wrestling next to Gamrot in the lightweight division. Benoit Saint-Denis, I feel like he's a judo guy that shoots takedowns and tries to get the fight onto the ground. Now, if he gets you there, can he put you in dangerous positions? Yes, but I don't see the same kind of finesse that an Arman Tsarukyan has, or like a Charles Oliveira has, or even guys lower, even a Paddy Pimblett. I don't see the same kind of slick jiu-jitsu. He just kind of muscles people around, and while that does work against lower levels of competition, I think Dan Hooker is experienced enough to just avoid getting submitted. And as the fight elongates, I trust Dan Hooker's cardio a lot more than Benoit Saint-Denis's. Alright, because you could say that, oh, Benoit Saint-Denis is just going to wrestle Dan Hooker over and over again. Keep in mind, Mauricio Rufi was able to reverse positions on Benoit Saint-Denis a couple of times. And I'll be real, I don't rate Mauricio Rufi's jiu-jitsu that highly. Alright, whereas Dan Hooker, yes, he got ragdolled by Arman Tsarukyan, but his jiu-jitsu's really good. It's just that Armatsuruki is the #1 lightweight contender. So I think Dan Hooker, early on, he's going to be surviving Benoit Saint-Denis trying to grapple him nonstop. But I don't think he's going to get submitted in the first round. And I'm not convinced of BSD's cardio just yet when he's facing resistance. So I think Dan Hooker will be able to piece up Benoit Saint-Denis. He still is kind of concerning on the feet. You got to keep in mind, BSD, he's able to mask it because he's able to just kick nonstop and wrestle right after. But if that doesn't work, Benoit Saint-Denis is going to be forced to fight with his hands, and I'm expecting Dan Hooker to just pop Benoit Saint-Denis' chin over and over again and just kind of bobble around BSD's head over and over again as the fight progresses. So I'm going to go with Dan Hooker to win this fight. I'm going to say decision. I'm going to say 29-28 decision. And because I think it's going to be close, it kind of reaffirms me that it's going to be Dan Hooker because the Australian judges love Dan Hooker. And if anybody's going to win in Australia, I'm going to go with the fan favorite Dan Hooker to get the job done over the course of 3 rounds. Last but not least, we got Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez, the rematch that we have all been asking for. And listen, it's going to be a fun fight. Alright, so I'm not going to be a Debbie Downer on this one. I'm going to go with Volkanovski this time. I understand that I picked Lopez the first time, and Lopez does look improved right after beating Gene Silva, but I just think Volkanovski, he is the more technical fighter on the feet. Sure, you could say that, Diego Lopez is a lot more patient now, but I don't see Diego Lopez really being able to push a pace over the course of 5 rounds. Alright, that's just not Diego Lopez's style. Volkanovski, on the other hand, he is a master tactician. And although he doesn't have one-punch knockout power, which is kind of concerning because the only way Volkanovski is going to win this fight is via decision, I just don't see Diego Lopez really being able to land that cleanly. His footwork has always been the problem, in my opinion, and Volkanovski will take advantage of that without a doubt. Alright, Volkanovski, I'm expecting him to just do something very similar to the first fight, but albeit, I think, a more heavy wrestling approach, just to avoid more damage, because Diego Lopez, he's a phenomenal grappler, but he doesn't offensively wrestle. I don't think he has the offensive wrestling that can match Volkanovski, and I think Volkanovski's pretty safe from the submissions. I understand that Diego Lopez is an elite level grappler, but Volkanovski is the perfect anti-jiu-jitsu guy. He can just hoverboard backs around all of his opponents and just neutralize the jiu-jitsu in order to get the fight to where he wants it to. So I think Volkanovski is going to put on a very similar performance to the first fight, albeit a more tactical and reserved approach. So I'm going to go with Alexander Volkanovski to get a decision win over Diego Lopez. Maybe Diego Lopez has some kind of success. Maybe he wobbles him. Maybe he drops him. But I do think that Volkanovski is the cleaner fighter. I mean, it's very apparent since the first fight that happened. So I'm going to go with Volkanovski to win this rematch. I'm going to say 49-46 or 48-47. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so we can monetize this channel. But otherwise, though, leave your predictions for UFC 325 in the comments down below, as well as any other video suggestions you have for me, and I'll try to make them as soon as possible. But outside of that, I will see you guys next time. Peace.